We are in the heart of spring break time. Can you just imagine? I mean, are you out there thinking about, gosh, you know what? It's last minute right now or beginning of March. I got to get a trip booked. I got to get out of here, especially in Minnesota. It's so cold. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Are you going to get online? Are you going to check out the websites? Are you going to go to one of those sites like Expedia? Oh, man, they got good deals on flights. Oh, look at this hotel. Look at these pictures. Look at the beach. And then imagine this. All of a sudden you get down there, you and the 3 kids, and you show up to the hotel and you go to your room and you're like, this isn't what the picture showed. And then you go out to the pool and you're like, wait a minute. This is not what the pool looked like in the pictures. Or you go to the beach and there's a bunch of garbage on the beach and you're like, okay, wait a minute. I cannot stay here. That's why you call Maureen over at A1 Travel, because that kind of stuff will not happen. Right, Maureen?
Very true. Yep.
Thanks for coming on today, Maureen. I'm excited to have you. And, you know, we are in the heat of spring break, is what I just said.
Absolutely. And it's so true. Yeah, we're escaping the bad Minnesota weather and everybody's starting to go. This is a popular week. End of March is a very popular week. And even into the first week of April, everybody's traveling.
Yeah. So, I mean, are people actually booking spring break trips with their families? I know if they're in college, they're booking it like the last minute. Mm-hmm. But I mean, are people actually booking spring break trips here 2 or 3 weeks before they're supposed to take off?
They absolutely are. I, to a certain extent, wish that they weren't, because there's so little availability left at this point, and prices are exorbitant. It's definitely one of those trips you want to plan ahead for. But that being said, yeah, we had some last minute bookings late last week, early this week. It's still happening.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm curious as we get going here in the podcast to figure out if they call you, if you know they're able to get maybe a better room than if they're going on Expedia or one of those online sites, because we know what those are all about, right?
Yep, absolutely. I know.
So how did you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, how do you get into the travel agency world, especially now in 2018, when I'm guessing your biggest question is travel agent? What are they?
Exactly. And it was honestly something that I Googled. I made a career change. I started in TV news, and that's what I studied in college. And most recently was a news anchor down in Mankato, and was feeling a little burnt out. It was one of those things where there are a lot of attractive aspects of the job. There are also some things about the industry that absolutely drove me nuts. And so I knew that I needed a change. My husband landed his dream job as a firefighter for the city of Minneapolis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And he had followed me kind of through my nomadic lifestyle for TV. You move from station to station and kind of work your way up. And I decided that it was probably time to repay the favor. This is home for me.
Right.
And so we had
Till death do we part, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. I know. So, yeah. And so I started thinking about what else I like to do. And I've always loved travel. It's always been a passion of mine. I've also just been a naturally curious person. It was something that worked out well when I was reporting and when I was an anchor. It fit in well with news, but it also fit in really well with travel, because before I was a travel agent, I was one of those people reading all the guidebooks, going in depth, learning about every single place I was going to visit, and planning the trips myself. Not as well as I do now, because I didn't know what I was doing,
right, exactly.
But I had that passion. And so I literally sat down at my laptop one day and Googled, how do you become a travel agent? Do they still exist? Is this something that is a viable career choice?
By chance, were you one of those that studied abroad in college?
I was, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
And I mean, because that's the other thing is, you know, the younger generations, I mean, studying abroad, taking college classes over here, over there, that's like, there's a lot of that going on.
Exactly. And it's a great thing to do, in all honesty. I encourage any student who's interested in that to do that. I studied in Tunisia in North Africa. My parents looked at me like, why can't you go to Spain or France like the normal kids? What's wrong with you?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
North Africa, let's go there.
So spent some time in the Sahara Desert. Tunis, the capital, is just this beautiful Mediterranean town. And I loved it. And that was one of the things that stoked my passion for travel. I grew up traveling too, though. We always were taking family trips. My parents were really good about making that a priority. It was always something that they felt was a good thing to spend money on.
Did they have that big station wagon with the big back back end where they could throw the mattress and you could sleep in it?
Not quite, but we did. We had a minivan for many years.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your travels as a kid, because I would say that, I feel like everything inspires where you end up when you're a kid. It's like, you know where you're going to end up when you're a kid, but the journey to get there, you never know where it's going to take you, right?
Exactly. And it started at a very young age. I mean, to the point that when I was a baby, was just born, and I'm a November baby. And my dad, who is from Michigan, wanted to get me home to his mom for the holidays. So I'm literally a month and a half old at that point. And there was a huge snowstorm between Minneapolis and our drive to southwestern Michigan. They lived in St. Joseph, right on Lake Michigan. And it was nuts. I think the closest my parents have ever come to divorce was that drive.
Yeah, right.
My mom saying, "Are you kidding me? You have our new baby in the car and you are driving out to Michigan in this weather."
Right.
But, it was a fantastic trip. And again, that was really focused around family, about visiting a lot of the people that we cared about. That was a common theme. We would go to Michigan where my dad's mom was. We would go to Florida where my mom's parents were all the time. Nice to be able to have a place to stay when you're going down to the beach, makes things a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we were also always really big into nature and hiking and trips that were focused around something like that. And so we visited so many national parks. We went to Yellowstone, to Yosemite, to the Canadian Rockies, which I can't wait to go back.
Yeah,
It's stunning.
I've heard that's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Sedona, Arizona is one of my favorite places on earth. And so anything where we could get outside and get active, that was always a big draw for us.
Do you think part of that is what got you curious with books, or just curious as a human being because you were raised in a curious environment of travel and adventure?
I think that's very true. I grew up in a family of nerds, to be honest. My dad is a font of useless information, and I inherited that trait. It's
That's
genetic.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
so just learning things and then telling everybody else what you learned. Again, that was one of the things that initially drew me to TV, but now I get to do the same thing in this job and go to these places and then tell my clients, yeah, I've been there. This is what you want to see. This is what you can probably skip. And this is where you want to stay.
Well, take us back. So you're on the internet and you're like, okay, travel agencies you're Googling. I mean, take us back to that and how you ended up here at A1 Travel.
Well, at first I told my husband and my parents and all the people that I was talking to this career change about that this is what I wanted to do. And they all looked at me like I was nuts. I mean, I honestly got some jokes about going from one dyeing industry to another. But the fact, and that was a little cruel,
Yeah,
it wasn't entirely fair. And it's definitely not true, which is what I discovered. I, through this search, found a travel academy that's up in Egan, here in Minnesota, that draws people from all over the country, actually even all over the world. We had a girl in my class who was from South Africa who came there. And they train travel agents, they train flight attendants, people who want to work on cruise ships, and you're cross-trained in all of it. So now when I'm sitting on a plane, I'm watching the flight attendants, and I know what they're doing because I was trained to do that too.
Right, exactly.
But, it was just one of those things where I knew that if there was still a school existing that was training people in all of these industries, clearly the industry was not dying. And what I learned while I was there is that not only is it not dying, it's actually having a resurgence because of, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, I'm sure, but people in the age of Expedia know they can go on and book everything themselves, but what they're finding more often than not is that actually they don't want to do it themselves. And so even though this industry was hard hit when the internet first started becoming a big factor, it's changing. And we're really on the upswing now, which is fantastic.
So why did you end up actually becoming a travel agent? I mean, because that's a deep-seated question on, gosh, well, okay, I'm going to change my career from this to something totally different. Well, why?
I kept thinking about what I love to do, and I kept coming back to travel. And it was something that I kind of brought my husband into as well. He was one of those people that I think initially was totally content never leaving the United States and never really going that far from where we lived. And my best friend is from France. She got married to one of our friends. We all went to college together, who is from Southern Illinois. And so they had two weddings, one in the complete boonies in Southern Illinois and one in France. And we knew we had to go. And I was, of course, thrilled. My husband was apprehensive, but we went to France and then we spent some time in Spain after that. He was hooked, and I was reminded of how much this was a passion of mine.
Right.
And so I realized that, I am curious about everything, and I am already studying everything I can before I go on these trips, learning as much as I can so that I can plan out a trip that's going to be an enjoyable one for me. And then I started thinking about whether I could somehow call it a job. And that's what it's become.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, because I'm a huge believer in that. It's like, don't sit there and say, oh gosh, I gotta go get a job. Sit there and say, what will I do, or what makes me wake up every morning excited to do whatever it is I'm gonna do? And I'm gonna get paid for it.
Exactly.
Isn't that the way to go?
Out. Yeah. Yep. And I highly recommend it. It's a good way to figure out exactly what you're passionate about.
So, okay, now you have the job here at A1 Travel. How long have you been here?
Almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years this summer.
Okay. So you're here for 2 years. I'm guessing you're loving it because you're still here for 2 years.
Yep.
What is it about you that somebody's going to love, and what you have to offer them when it comes to, booking a trip?
I think that immediately people see my passion. I deal with people in all different forms. I talk to them on the phone. I correspond with them via email. A lot of times we have people who stop by and they sit down for an appointment. And that's actually one of my favorite ways to interact with people, because I feel like once they meet me and they see how excited I am about planning their trip, they're sold. And I can kind of convey some of that over the phone and over email as well. But I do love sitting down with people and talking to them, meeting them, because that's really one of the things that I offer that you can't get from the internet. I personally get to know all my clients. I talk about their travel styles. I ask them about what they are interested in, what they want to see, where they want to go, and I craft a trip, curate a trip that is personal to them. I don't give somebody a generic itinerary. I mean, every time somebody goes to London, I don't give them the same itinerary and say, check all these things off your list. I get to know them. I talk about what they want to do. And I'm able to really personalize it to something that is going to be memorable to them.
Well, and it sounds like you take a heck of a lot of pride digging deep for that place to have a glass of wine or to have that meal that nobody else is going to have. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to travel because they want the experience, right? So tell us, how deep do you dig? I mean, do you have a story of, oh, let me tell you about this trip I planned? I mean, how deep do you go to make sure that when they come back, I mean, they're like, Maureen, seriously, that restaurant you sent me to, how did you even find that place?
I do. I actually have some great clients who I booked a couple trips for, and they wanted to take this trip to northern Italy and to Switzerland, and they just wanted to do it all. They were one of these types of personalities where they were just so passionate about everything. They didn't know where to start, but they knew that they wanted to have an incredible trip, and they wanted to take the train as much as possible, because when you're in the Alps, you want to be curving around through those mountains and seeing those vistas. And so we actually booked them on, I believe it was 3 separate beautiful train rides throughout northern Italy and Switzerland.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and they got off the train too, but it was one of those things where that was something that they were very passionate about. And when you've got these big panoramic windows, there's no better way to see Switzerland. And so that's one that comes to mind. Another one was one where I had to do some real digging. I have a good client of mine, a loyal client, who goes on these fantastic trips. I'm always asking him where he's going next because it's fascinating. I mean, I most recently booked airfare for, I think he was taking a trip to Zambia. And so he's going to Africa, and that was fascinating. He's been all over the world, but he was taking a trip to New Zealand for a big tour that he was doing there, and wanted a transfer from the airport to where he was, to his hotel in this small town in New Zealand. And a lot of times it's very easy for us to just book a transfer, have somebody come pick you up, take you to where you need to go next. And he was going to Nelson, New Zealand. There were plenty of transfers in Auckland, plenty of transfers other places. but it wasn't where he was. And so to have to do that digging and find somebody who was going to drive him from point A to point B was a challenge. And it seems like a little thing that, isn't that big of a deal, but this was very important to this client. And so I did finally find somebody, went back and forth with the time difference between here and New Zealand for a number of days to try to figure out exactly what he wanted. And the transfer was there when he arrived at the airport and everything went fine, but it was a little bit of a stressful situation.
Well, yeah, exactly, right?
So
you don't have the exact answer for that.
Yeah.
And isn't that really where your value comes in?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, because I will do that digging. I will find what people are looking for, whether it's easy or not. So
let's go back to the internet, right? I mean, the internet's so easy. It's on my phone. All I have to do is click, 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 boom, 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 and I got a trip, I got a room, I got everything. But like I said in the intro, is it really that easy? I mean, tell me about this.
Good question. And that's what we always warn people about. The fact of the matter is, when you see a photo of something on the internet, the hotels take these beautiful photos. They bring somebody in who is going to make the rooms and the pool and everything on site at the resort look fantastic, whether it does in real life or not.
I mean, is it kind of like that supermodel on Sports Illustrated who she's gorgeous, but they definitely touch it up?
She's airbrushed, exactly, yes. And she's probably gorgeous in real life, too. Unfortunately, some of these resorts are not gorgeous in real life, too. And so in reality, we've actually been to a number of these places. We take trips every year where people always talk to us about, it must be really tough to have to go on a work trip wherever we're going. But it really is work. We're touring, 10 or 20 hotels within a day. And we're going in and out and taking photos and taking notes so that we can come back to our clients and say, yes, absolutely, this hotel is as advertised and I would love to book it for you, or absolutely not, do not stay there. You will absolutely hate it.
Okay, you got to tell me a story. I mean, seriously, there's got to be a story where, I booked this trip on Expedia or whatever website Priceline, and it was not even close. I need your help.
We do have calls like that all the time. People will call us after, we'll go through the process, we'll quote something out for them, they'll come back to us and say, we booked it online, and sorry, maybe I'll contact you next time. But then those are often the people who call us from the hotel and say, something went wrong. Something happened, and we really need your help. And in all honesty, sometimes it's family members who are your worst clients. I think the best horror story that
They're like, well, I'm not going to use you, but if I really have a problem, I'll call you.
Exactly. Well, and I planned my own honeymoon. That's one of the benefits of this job. And so my husband and I, we love Spain. We went back to Spain, and I picked out most of the places that we stayed. There is this hotel that I can't wait to go back. It's set within the Alhambra grounds in Granada. The Alhambra is this big UNESCO World Heritage Site palace. And so we stayed literally at the palace.
That's cool.
And it was amazing. But my husband, when we went back to Madrid for the end of the trip, wanted in on this. He wanted to pick something out. And so we were staying in Madrid. We love staying in apartments. We work with a bunch of different rental properties. And that kind of gives you a local feel. You're among everybody else as opposed to being in a tourist zone with just hotels. And so he really wanted to pick a place out. He picked a place that I had not seen any reviews on. I clearly hadn't been to. And it was cheap. It was definitely cheap, but it looked okay from the photos. And so I was hesitant because I know better.
Right.
But it was our honeymoon, and I had done so much of the planning, and I wanted to let him have a piece of it. And oh my God, he swears, never again. We stood outside for 2 hours because by the time we arrived, there was nobody there to give us a key and let us in. And so we're trying to use our phones that don't work in Spain to try to convey to somebody that we need to get in. We finally met some women who lived in this apartment complex and were able to get a hold of the manager and help us out. But it was literally 2 hours of our night that were wasted just trying to get in. And then when we got in, it was outdated, it was small, it was nothing like what the pictures had advertised. And thank goodness it was only for our last 2 nights because I would have killed him.
So is it true you get what you pay for?
Absolutely. It's so true. It's really true.
That's awesome.
And he's never allowed to pick out hotels or apartments on our vacations ever again. And he knows that. He's learned his lesson, but
That's
never
awesome.
again.
That's so cool. That's great. Well, I hope you have a blast on your trip for your wedding. That's going to be awesome.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, if I'm sitting there, I mean, obviously what you have to say has a lot of merit, and I know there's plenty of people out there listening right now that have probably had an experience similar to one of the ones that we've talked about. How do they reach out to you? One of the things I think, because again, you do get what you pay for, and it might cost a little bit more to have a travel agent. What are those things that people are probably thinking like, oh gosh, but do I really want to pay that extra amount? Or, take us through some of those obstacles that people are probably thinking about right now about, do I really want to use a travel agent?
Right, absolutely. And that's a good question. There are a number of different factors. And one of the things that people don't always realize is that we're often very competitive. We can sometimes come in under what they're seeing online. And
how do you do that?
Yeah, we work with a number of great vendors who have different promotions going on. They have different sales, and we're able to compete a lot of the time. It's not all the time. Sometimes you really are paying for the service, paying for the value of what you're getting with working with us. But we do have people who are price checkers, and they're comparing us against what they're finding online, and we have a lot of luck either finding something that's just as close, almost as close, or sometimes, like I said, coming in under that bar. And so that's great. But there are also things that I think are absolutely worth spending money on. One of the things that I always recommend, a big spring break destination, is Mexico, of course, or anywhere in the Caribbean, really. We send a lot of people. Punta Cana has been very popular lately. And when you book these packages with your airfare and with your hotel, you usually also have these transfers included. The ones that are included are a shuttle. You get on the shuttle, it stops at every single resort along the way and drops off people. And the resorts in these places are not just, you don't just pull off the road into a parking lot and you're there. These roads are usually set back, and then you go through some jungle, and then you get to the beach, and then you get to the resort. So you're going down these long driveways each time, dropping people off, coming back, and then you move on to the next one, and maybe eventually they get to yours, but you're spending 2 hours on a shuttle.
Yeah, right. Nobody told me about this.
Right. And we do tell people about that, and we also tell them that in most cases, it's so inexpensive to upgrade to either a shared shuttle, so you're still there with other people, but it's only going to one resort, so you're all just going directly to where you need to go, or even to private transfers. If you're there with a big multi-generational trip, if you've got a family and, kids all the way up to grandparents, just get a private transfer. It's so much easier, and you've got one big car that's going to take you exactly where you need to go without any fuss. I mean, a lot of times I price it out, and to upgrade to these shared nonstops that take you directly to your resort, it's like $15 a person. It's a no-brainer.
Again, you get what you pay for, right?
It's just one of those things where I say, absolutely, yes, please upgrade, because you will thank me for it when you're not sitting on the shuttle for 2 hours.
So how do I get a hold of you? How do I touch base? And if I do get a hold of you, am I going to be getting some sales pitch? Or are you going to lock me into something? I don't know. I'm kind of iffy about it. That's what everybody thinks when they, get off the internet and they don't have control.
Of course. And let's start with the basics. In order to contact us, you can go to our website. It's www.a1travelmn.com. Then you can either send Sandy an email. She's our boss, and she usually kind of divvies up what the best fit is, which agent she's going to send you to, or you can, reach out to me directly. Call us on the phone, 952-925-2551, or just stop by the office. We're right over in this. We share a parking lot with Fuddruckers, so we're easy to find. 494 in France. So.
And you guys are family owned, right?
Yes.
So This is just a small little agency. This isn't some big conglomerate, right?
Yes, exactly. We were told lately by one of our vendors that we're medium sized, so we're going with that. But yes,
That's awesome.
You're right. We're very personable. There are just a few of us here, and we really know each other well, and we get together and really support each other and support our clients. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to share with the audience about travel that maybe I missed?
Yeah, I guess just getting to the second part of your question, which is, are we going to give people that high pressure sales pitch? I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I've been on the other end of that for other industries, for other things that I need. And we're never going to tell you, you need to book this now. we'll work with you. We get to know you. We make sure that we're finding you a trip that is going to be the best trip that you want to take. And then we work with you. Sometimes, I've actually told people before, for example, that one airline's schedule wasn't released yet. And so the other airlines were pretty highly priced. And so they may want to wait until that schedule is released to get more competitive pricing. I would have loved to tell them, book now, because, obviously that's a benefit for me, but I'm going to be honest with my clients too. I'm going to let them know that if they are budget conscious and they are looking to make sure that they're getting the best value for their money, that that's on the high end for airfare to that destination. And so I really just try to be honest, straightforward, and to make sure that they know that I'm looking out for them.
So I always like to ask all of our guests one other question, and I'm a big believer in giving back, especially giving back to the community, giving back to your clients. Is there anything in particular that you guys do to give back?
We actually do. We have a couple different charitable events coming up. Sandy is actually instrumental in putting together an MS motorcycle ride. And
Sandy's the owner, right?
Yes, she is. Okay. Yes, exactly. And so she always puts together a big donation basket that we can contribute that has, usually a voucher towards a trip, or maybe sometimes even, a free hotel stay and airfare. We work with our vendors to get those donations so that we can contribute them. And we also have another one coming up, and I can't exactly remember all the details, but we are actually giving away, worked again with one of the hotels that we work with. It's I believe a 4 or 5 night hotel stay plus a really nice travel voucher for the airfare, which, if you play your cards right, you're probably flying down to Mexico, which is the destination, first class instead of coach.
That's cool.
So we love being able to use what we do as an instrument to reward people for silent auctions, things like that, for giving back to causes that we believe in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, Maureen. It was amazing to hear your stories, and I hope that you opened a couple people's eyes who jump on the internet and want to book their spring break.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us.